Are you feeling scared or lost in life right now? Do you sometimes feel overwhelmed with anxiety, fear, or uncertainty about the future? If so, then you're not alone. Many people around the world struggle with these feelings at various points in their lives. But the good news is that the Bible offers hope and comfort for those who are feeling this way. One of the most encouraging psalms that speaks to these issues is Psalm 27. In this powerful passage, the psalmist King David expresses his confidence in God and his protection, even in the midst of difficult circumstances. David was no stranger to feeling afraid or lost. He faced many trials and tribulations throughout his life. But through it all, he learned to put his trust in the Lord. So if you're currently going through a season of fear, anxiety, or feeling lost, I encourage you to turn to Psalm 27. Let's take a closer look at this scripture and unpack the powerful truths it has to offer. My prayer is that as we study this psalm together, you'll find the comfort, strength, and direction that your soul is longing for. Psalm 27 begins with these words, "The Lord is my light and my salvation, whom shall I fear? The Lord is the stronghold of my life, of whom shall I be afraid?" Psalm 27 verse 1. Right away, we see that the psalmist is declaring his confidence in God. He acknowledges that the Lord is his light and salvation, in other words, the source of his guidance and deliverance. When we're feeling lost or afraid, it's easy to look at our circumstances and focus on all the things that are causing us to worry. But David reminds us here to shift our gaze upward, to the one who is in control of it all. No matter what we may be facing, we don't have to be afraid, because the Lord is our stronghold, our fortress, our protector. David goes on to say, "When revilers assail me to eat up my flesh, my adversaries and foes, it is they who stumble and fall." Psalm 27 verse 2. Even in the midst of attacks from his enemies, David expresses his trust that God will ultimately prevail. He knows that those who oppose him will be the ones who stumble and fall, not him. This is an important truth for us to remember as well. No matter what kinds of revilers or adversaries we may be facing in our own lives, whether it's a difficult boss, a toxic relationship, financial troubles, health issues, or anything else, we can take comfort in knowing that God is on our side. He will protect us and ensure that our enemies will not ultimately triumph. In verse 3, David declares, "Though an army encamp against me, my heart shall not fear. Though war arise against me, yet I will be confident." This is an incredible statement of faith, especially considering the dangerous and turbulent times David was living in. As the king of Israel, he was constantly under threat from enemies who wanted to overthrow him. Yet even in the face of such daunting circumstances, David refuses to let fear take over. He knows that God is with him, and that is enough to sustain his confidence. No matter how dire the situation may appear, David chooses to trust in the Lord's power and provision. This is a lesson we would all do well to learn. When we're feeling scared or lost, it's natural for us to focus on the problems we're facing and allow fear to creep in. But David shows us that we have a choice in how we respond. We can choose to be confident in God's love and protection, even when the odds seem stacked against us. The psalmist goes on to explain the reason for his unwavering faith. "One thing have I asked of the Lord, that will I seek after, that I may dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, to gaze upon the beauty of the Lord and to inquire in his temple." Psalm 27 verse 4. For David, his deepest desire was to be in the presence of God, to worship him and learn from him. This was the true source of his strength and security. No matter what trials he faced in the outside world, he knew that he could find refuge, peace, and purpose in drawing near to the Lord. This is a wonderful model for us as well. When we're feeling lost or afraid, the temptation is often to frantically search for answers or solutions in the world around us. But true and lasting peace can only be found in God's presence. If we make it our priority to seek him, to spend time in his word and in prayer, he will provide the guidance, comfort, and strength that our souls desperately need. David goes on to express his confidence that God will protect him, even in the most dangerous of circumstances. He says, "For he will hide me in his shelter in the day of trouble. He will conceal me under the cover of his tent. He will lift me high upon a rock, Psalm 27 verse 5. The imagery here is so powerful, God as a shelter, a hiding place, a fortress that will keep us safe. No matter what storms may be raging around us, we can find refuge in Him. He will lift us up and place us in a secure, elevated position where we can see clearly and be protected. This is such an important truth to cling to when we're feeling lost or afraid. It's easy to feel like we're being tossed about by the waves of life, with no solid ground to stand on. But God promises to be our rock, our strong foundation that will never be shaken. We can find safety and security in Him, no matter what we're facing. David then declares, "And now my head shall be lifted up above my enemies all around me, and I will offer in His tent sacrifices with shouts of joy. I will sing and make melody to the Lord," Psalm 27 verse 6. This is a powerful statement of victory and praise. Even in the midst of his struggles, David is so confident in God's deliverance that he's already imagining his enemies being defeated. He knows that the Lord will ultimately lift him up and enable him to triumph. And in response, David promises to worship and glorify God with joyful songs and sacrifices. This is the kind of faith and perspective that we should strive for as well. When we're feeling scared or lost, it's important that we don't just wallow in our fears, but that we actively choose to trust in God's power and protection. We can take comfort in the knowledge that He will fight for us and ensure our ultimate victory, even if the battle seems difficult in the moment. And like David, our response to God's faithfulness should be one of heartfelt worship and praise. As we experience His deliverance and see Him work in our lives, it should fill us with such joy and gratitude that we can't help but express it through our words, our actions, and our wholehearted devotion to Him. The psalmist then makes a request to God in verse 7, "Hear, O Lord, when I cry aloud, be gracious to me and answer me." This is an earnest plea for God to listen to his cries and respond with compassion and aid. Even the most faithful believers can sometimes feel like their prayers are going unanswered. When we're in the midst of a trial, it can be easy to wonder if God is really there, or if He even cares about our struggles. But David reminds us here that we should continue to call out to God, trusting that He will hear us and come to our assistance. The psalmist goes on to say, "You have said, 'Seek my face.' My heart says to you, 'Your face, Lord, do I seek,' Psalm 27 verse 8. This is a beautiful picture of a heart that is fully devoted to pursuing an intimate relationship with God. David is affirming that he has heard God's invitation to seek His presence, and he is eagerly responding to that call. This is the kind of wholehearted devotion that we should strive for as well. When we're feeling lost or afraid, the best thing we can do is to draw closer to God, to seek His face and His guidance. As we do that, He will reveal Himself to us in powerful ways and provide the comfort, strength, and direction that our souls need. David then makes another heartfelt plea, "Hide not your face from me. Turn not your servant away in anger, O you who have been my help. Cast me not off, forsake me not, O God of my salvation." Psalm 27 verse 9, here we see the depth of David's desperation and his fear of being abandoned by God. Even the strongest believers can sometimes feel like God has turned His face away from them, or that they've somehow fallen out of His favor. But David reminds us here that we can always come to God with our honest feelings and fears, trusting that He will never truly forsake us. The psalmist goes on to say, "For my father and my mother have forsaken me, but the Lord will take me in," Psalm 27 verse 10. This is a powerful statement about the unwavering love and acceptance that we can find in God, even when we feel rejected or abandoned by those closest to us. No matter what disappointments or betrayals we may have experienced in our earthly relationships, we can find solace in knowing that God will never leave us or cast us aside. He is the perfect, loving Father who will always welcome us with open arms and embrace us as His own. This is the kind of sanctuary and security that we can cling to when we're feeling lost or afraid. David then makes a bold declaration, "Teach me your way, O Lord, and lead me on a level path because of my enemies," Psalm 27 verse 11. Here we see that even in the midst of his trials, David is still hungry to learn from God and to walk in obedience to His will. Rather than simply asking God to rescue him from his problems, David is seeking God's guidance and direction. He knows that the key to overcoming his fears and enemies is to align his life with God's perfect plan. And so he humbly asks the Lord to teach him and lead him on the right path. This is such an important lesson for us as well. When we're feeling lost or afraid, our natural tendency is often to frantically search for a way out of our troubles. But true and lasting victory comes when we surrender our lives to God's leadership and submit to His will for us. As we allow Him to guide our steps, He will empower us to triumph over the obstacles we face. David then expresses his confidence that God will do just that, saying, "Give me not up to the will of my adversaries, for false witnesses have risen against me, and they breathe out violence." Psalm 27 verse 12. Even as he acknowledges the very real threats he is facing from his enemies, David declares his trust that God will not abandon him to their schemes. This is a powerful reminder for us that no matter how dire our circumstances may appear, we can always count on God's faithful protection. Even when it feels like the odds are stacked against us, we can be confident that the Lord will intervene and ensure that we are not overcome by the forces that seek to destroy us. As the psalm draws to a close, David makes another plea to God, "I believe that I shall look upon the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living." Psalm 27 verse 13. Here we see the psalmist's deep longing to experience God's blessings and favor, even in the midst of his present troubles. David is expressing his unwavering hope that he will one day see the fulfillment of God's promises, that he will witness the Lord's goodness and be delivered from his trials. This is a beautiful picture of faith in the face of adversity. Even when things look bleak, David clings to the belief that God will ultimately come through for him. This is the kind of faith that we should strive for as well. When we are feeling scared or lost, it can be easy to focus solely on our problems and lose sight of God's promises. But like David, we need to keep our eyes fixed on the truth that the Lord is good, and that He will work all things together for our good and His glory. The psalm concludes with these powerful words, "Wait for the Lord, be strong, and let your heart take courage, wait for the Lord." Psalm 27 verse 14. Here David reinforces the importance of patient endurance and unwavering trust in God, even when the wait seems long and the challenges seem insurmountable. The message is clear: when we are facing fear and uncertainty, we must resist the temptation to try to solve our problems on our own. Instead, we need to wait upon the Lord, drawing strength and courage from Him. As we do so, He will provide the guidance, protection, and deliverance that we so desperately need. This is the powerful truth that Psalm 27 offers to all who are feeling scared or lost. Throughout this passage, we see David modeling for us a faith that is steadfast, unshakable, and wholly focused on the goodness and faithfulness of God. Even in the midst of his darkest trials, David refused to let fear and despair overtake him. Instead, he clung to the truth that the Lord was his light, his salvation, and his strong fortress. So if you're currently feeling scared or lost, I encourage you to turn to Psalm 27 and meditate on the powerful promises it contains. Allow the words of this psalm to fill your heart and mind, and let them be a source of comfort, strength, and unwavering hope. Cry out to God, as David did, and trust that He will hear your cries and answer you. And as you wait upon the Lord, be encouraged by the truth that He will never leave you or forsake you. He will be your light in the darkness, your refuge in the storm, and your ultimate victory over any enemy or trial that comes your way. With God as your foundation, you need not fear, for He is faithful to fulfill all of His good promises to you. So take heart, my friend. The Lord is with you, and Psalm 27 provides the answers and the hope that your soul is longing for. Keep your eyes fixed on Him, and allow His perfect love to cast out all of your fears. For in the end, the Lord will surely lift you up and enable you to celebrate your triumph in His presence, with shouts of joy and songs of praise.